The day I discovered my husband's $120,000 secret. I never thought I'd be writing one of those long, messy confessions you see on Reddit, but here I am. I guess sometimes the truth is too heavy to carry alone, and maybe putting it all into words will help me breathe again. My name doesn't matter, and I'm not going to use my husband's real name either, so let's just call him Daniel. We've been together for nearly 11 years, married for 8, and I thought I knew everything about him. I thought he was my safe place, my anchor, the man who would never lie to me. Turns out, I was wrong. Daniel has been lying to me for almost our entire marriage. Not about another woman, not about kids, not even about some dark family secret, though I almost wish it had been. No, Daniel has been lying about money. About debt. About thousands and thousands of dollars he's been hiding behind a carefully constructed mask of stability. And the kicker? His lies almost took me down with him. Let me rewind a bit. When Daniel and I first started dating, he wasn't flashy, but he was steady. He had a reliable job in IT, drove an older car but kept it clean, and always seemed thoughtful with money. Meanwhile, I was working full-time and trying to finish grad school. We weren't rolling in cash, but together we made things work. He paid for more dinners out in those early days, and I thought it was sweet. I never thought to ask how he could afford it. Fast forward a couple of years, he proposed, I said yes, and we dove into the whirlwind of wedding planning. I suggested we keep things small to save money, but Daniel insisted that we deserved something special. His parents contributed, my parents chipped in, and Daniel said he would handle the rest. I assumed he had some savings tucked away. I didn't realize he was putting part of it on credit. The first real red flag came on our honeymoon. We were in Hawaii, staying in a nice resort, sipping cocktails by the ocean. One afternoon, while he was in the shower, I noticed his wallet sitting on the nightstand, bulging with receipts. Normally I wouldn't snoop, but one of the slips caught my eye. It was a minimum payment notice from a credit card company. I remember frowning, but when I asked Daniel later, he brushed it off. Oh, just an old balance from before we got married. Nothing to worry about. I believed him. I always believed him. Over the next few years, little things started piling up. He always insisted on being the one to pay bills online, saying he had a system. If I suggested I could help or asked to see the accounts, he would act almost insulted, like I didn't trust him. Around year 3 of our marriage, we started talking seriously about buying a house. We went to the bank, filled out applications, and I'll never forget the way the loan officer's face shifted as he scrolled through Daniel's credit report. "Mister, it looks like you've got some significant revolving debt here. Are you planning to consolidate before moving forward?" I swear my stomach dropped. Daniel laughed it off, said something about identity theft, and we left with no loan approval and no house. Later that night, I asked him what that was about, and he swore up and down that it was a mistake that would be cleared up. Again, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But then came the phone calls, collection agencies ringing our house phone at odd hours, numbers Daniel would rush to silence, excuses like telemarketers or wrong number. He started working more overtime, or so he claimed, but our savings account never grew. We were still living paycheck to paycheck, and I couldn't figure out why. By year 6, things really started to crack. Daniel had become moody, defensive. If I so much as mentioned money, he would snap at me or shut down. I thought maybe he was stressed from work. I thought maybe I was the problem for nagging him, but deep down, something in my gut whispered that this was bigger than stress. The breaking point came last year, just before our anniversary. I was doing laundry when I found a letter stuffed into the pocket of his work jacket. It was from a law firm, threatening wage garnishment if he didn't settle his outstanding balance of, get this, $42,000. My hands were shaking so badly I almost ripped the paper. My husband, the man who always preached about responsibility, who made me feel guilty for buying a $60 pair of shoes, was drowning in debt I knew nothing about. When I confronted him, it was like watching a mask slide off his face. At first, he tried to deny it. Then he tried to minimize it. Finally, He broke down, sobbing, admitting that he'd been hiding debt since before we got married. Credit cards, personal loans, payday advances, he'd used them to fund our wedding, our honeymoon, even some of the gifts he'd given me over the years. Every time he promised he had it under control, the hole just got deeper. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. All those years of trust, of partnership, suddenly meant nothing. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Angry that he had lied, angry that he had trapped me in his mess, angry that he had stolen my peace of mind for nearly a decade. The days after that confrontation blurred together. We barely spoke. I slept in the guest room. He promised he would fix it, that he would get a second job, that he would go to financial counseling. But I had stopped believing his promises. I needed facts, not words. So, one afternoon when he was at work, I opened his laptop. I dug through emails, statements, spreadsheets. What I found made my blood run cold. The total wasn't $42,000. It wasn't even $50,000. My husband was in debt for nearly $120,000. I just sat there, staring at the numbers on the screen until my eyes blurred. $120,000. That was more than I had ever made in a single year, more than the combined worth of both our cars, more than anything I had imagined possible. And all of it had been festering in the shadows of our marriage while I lived under the illusion of stability. The rage that boiled up inside me was unlike anything I'd felt before. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pack my bags and run, but instead, I printed out every single statement, spread them across our dining table, and waited for Daniel to come home. When he walked in and saw the papers, his face went pale. He didn't even try to talk at first, just dropped his bag and sat down, rubbing his temples. I demanded answers, and after a long silence, he finally gave me the full story. It started before we even met, college loans, a credit card or two. Then came the wedding, which he financed with more credit because he wanted it to be perfect for me. After that, it was like a snowball rolling downhill. A new TV when our old one still worked. Vacations we couldn't afford. Nights out with his friends where he never wanted to look cheap. Every time he told me he had things handled, he was just taking out another loan to cover the last one. But the worst part? He admitted that for the past 2 years, he had been gambling online to try to fix it. His brilliant plan had been to win enough to wipe out the debt, but of course, the losses only made it worse. I don't think I've ever cried as hard as I did that night. It wasn't just the money, it was the betrayal. This wasn't some tiny oversight or one-time mistake. This was a deliberate, ongoing deception. My husband had built our entire marriage on lies. The days that followed felt like living in a fog. My parents noticed something was wrong when I stopped coming to Sunday dinners. His family, of course, already knew more than I did. They had bailed him out before. That revelation hit me like a second betrayal. They'd been covering for him, enabling him, while I played the role of supportive, clueless wife. I started imagining the future in 2 versions, one where I stayed and tried to dig us out of this bottomless pit, and one where I walked away and started fresh. Both options terrified me. Meanwhile, Daniel threw himself into fixing things. He signed up for counseling, set up meetings with debt relief agencies, even applied for a night shift job. But I couldn't tell if he was doing it for us, or just out of desperation to keep me from leaving. Everywhere I went, I carried this invisible weight. At work, I plastered on a smile while inside I was screaming. Friends asked me why I looked tired, and I lied through my teeth. I felt like I was living in some alternate reality where my marriage was a fraud and everyone else was just normal. One night, I sat alone in the living room with all the statements spread out again. I picked up a pen and started circling numbers, adding them, subtracting them, trying to make sense of how we could possibly pay it off. But the truth was clear, even if we lived on rice and beans for the next decade, we would never catch up. The interest alone was suffocating. That's when I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Done carrying someone else's mess. Done living a lie. Done sacrificing my future for a man who couldn't tell me the truth. I didn't scream or slam doors. The next morning, I calmly told Daniel I wanted a separation. His face crumpled, and he begged, swore he could change, promised me that this time it would be different. But I had heard it all before. And something inside me had finally broken. The weeks after I left were brutal. I moved in with a friend, filed for divorce, and started the long, painful process of disentangling our finances. Daniel tried to fight it at first, but when he realized I wasn't budging, he gave in. It's been almost a year now. I won't lie and say I'm fully healed, some scars don't fade so quickly. I still flinch when the phone rings late at night, still feel sick when I think about all the times I trusted him. But I've also rediscovered something I hadn't felt in years: peace. My life is simpler now. My bank account is mine. My choices are mine. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never found that letter, if I had just kept believing his excuses. Maybe I'd still be drowning without realizing it. Maybe one day the debt collectors would have come after me too. What I do know is this: secrets don't stay hidden forever. Lies rot marriages from the inside out, and sometimes, walking away isn't failure, it's survival. So, Reddit, that's my story. My husband wasn't cheating with another woman. He was cheating with money, with debt, with lies. And in the end, it was enough to destroy everything we had.